Well, hello everybody, and welcome back to lesson 4 in our Ed Psych class. We are talking today about our sort of final chapter in research is looking at critiquing research and how you as academics need to be able to critique the research that you're reading. And then we're going to jump into a big research topic in Ed Psych, which is motivation. Okay, so to get us going, objectives for lesson 4 and 5. Basically, why are we doing this lesson together on critiquing research and motivation? Basically, because I want you to be able to critique foundational educational ideologies with specific to concepts in its psych. And I want you to be able to support your individual students through your knowledge of motivational theory and why students are acting the way they are, so that you can actually critique what's going on. And then, of course, everybody say, all on the journey to becoming the most amazing and inspiring teacher you can be. That's ultimately why we're doing all of this. Okay, so let's jump into credible research. And these are the 6 aspects of research that will then prove that the research is actually credible and you should actually read it and possibly implement it. If it doesn't uphold these standards, then it's not worth your time. Okay, so we're going to have a look at this. So systematic basically means it's methodical, like there's actually a method to it, and it can be replicated. So it's a study that is not just sort of a one-off, it can actually be replicated. Testable is the idea, especially in Ed Psych, is that can you actually test your theory in the classroom? Like, is it actually really pertinent to the classroom? So for example, you may want to look at sibling interaction after a trauma situation. Well, that's interesting, absolutely, but is it really going to affect how you deal with your classroom? So again, is it actually testable in the classroom? And then ultimately, for you as a teacher, is it really actually pertinent information? It might be interesting information. You're, of course, welcome to read it, but is it going to actually change your practice? Okay, going to go on now. I'm going to do different slides for the rest of these so that we can jump into this a little bit more. So objective versus subjective. You have to be aware that there is usually some kind of bias in research. And I pinpointed surveys, because surveys are a main way that that especially quantitative research gets their data. So when you're looking at, and these are from your readings, so when you're looking at results that come from surveys, you have to kind of dig a little bit and go, where did they actually get this data from? Was it an under coverage situation where possibly you're sampling, in your samples, you're actually missing out on one particular group? So for example, this is from the reading. If you're only polling your fans, then you're probably not getting a really accurate understanding of the general public, because your fans are kind of already bought in to who you are. So to really get a sense of, are you impacting society, you have to go much broader. You also have this sense of this when you're doing a survey is voluntary response sampling. And again, this is, you want to make sure that you're not just asking people in your survey who have already sort of bought into your company, to your product, to your educational ideology, right? So if you only poll your friends, probably that's not going to give you the most reliable stats. It will give you maybe the information that you're looking for, but it might not give you the most reliable. And then convenient sampling is you're just pulling the most convenient sample that you can get. So you're just, again, maybe in your class, you're just asking your class something, or just asking your school, when maybe to really be able to say this causes this, or really be able to say in school district 76, this happens, you'd want to then, of course, talk to everyone in school district 76 and not just your school, because your particular school may have a particular ideology. Okay, response bias and leading questions in research are when you write your research questions in a survey in either a really kind of convoluted manner, so that they're kind of hard to understand, or you're basically writing the question so that your respondents will respond in the way that you want them to respond so that you can use the data to justify your view. So you're leading your respondents to actually say what you are hoping your survey will end up, the result of your survey, but you're actually not really letting your respondents respond in the way that they actually truly feel because of the way that you have written the question. So it's just too easy. It's just too easy, but I had to bring it in. Trump's media bias poll might be the most biased thing I've read in 2019. This is, again, Trump put out a survey that was asking American people if they thought that the media was being biased against him. So the writer of this, I'm just going to read a little bit of this. The author of this article actually says, questions 1 through 10 were pretty decent, but then it started to get convoluted and very leading. So basically, the trouble starts on question 10 of this particular poll with problematic wording. So, do you believe that the mainstream media does not do their due diligence, fact checking before publishing stories on the Trump administration? So, by putting in, usually you'll have a double negative in a survey question that is leading you. So his was, does the mainstream media does not do. So you have to really think, okay, if I say yes, I'm saying that the mainstream media does not do. And if I say no, then I'm saying the mainstream media does do. How it should have been written, you want to write your questions in the simplest form so that the results that you get are actually not a result. Can the people dissect the question to actually really figure out what I'm asking? It should have been written, where is it? Do you believe the mainstream media does their due diligence in fact checking before publishing stories on the Trump administration? So then you just say, yes, I believe. No, I do not believe. That's the best way. But when you have a double negative, does not do, it's tricky. So again, when you're looking at research, and you want to look at what did they actually ask, because how they asked it will impact their results. Okay, so hopefully that gives you a little bit of an idea there. Also, credible research needs to be valid and reliable. So validity is, and I just wrote the definition out here just so that we keep it nice and clear. So basically, validity is the degree to which the research, instrument, and study as a whole measures what concept or construct it is actually supposed to measure, and it performs as it is supposed to. So are you actually studying what the whole construct of your research is actually supposed to be doing? I worked with a couple researchers at the U of C when I was there, and we talked about, you can put any data into the computer and it will spit something out, but it's how you input it, and is it actually the output of this data? Is it actually connected to or actually supporting the main concept that you are actually trying to go after? Okay, and then reliability, the degree to which the instrument or research produces consistent, stable indicators of the level of their variable. So does the instrument consistently measure what is it intended to measure? So if you have a survey and you send it out either to 2,000 people, or you send it out in January, in March, in April, and you can get pretty much consistent results, then it's reliable. Okay, but let's look at this. Research can be reliable, but not valid. So here's an example of that. For example, if your scale is off by 5 pounds, it reads your weight every day with an excess of 5 pounds. The scale is reliable, so it's because it consistently reports the same weight every day, but it's not valid because it adds 5 pounds to your true weight. Okay, it is not a valid measure of your weight. So that's why research can be reliable. You can do the test over and over and over again and get similar results, but it's not valid because it's actually not really testing what you are wanting to test. Okay, so research cannot be valid unless it is reliable. Okay, so it cannot be a true measure of the concept if the instrument produces inconsistent results. So that's a little bit of research can be reliable but not valid, but it cannot be valid unless it is reliable in there. Okay, you might want to stop for a second, just ponder that because it's kind of a bizarre concept, but I think just take a few minutes and just kind of go through that. If you're like, yeah, got it, just keep on going. Okay. Oh, yes. Isn't this interesting? Hopefully you've hopefully you watched the movie trailer. If you haven't, we're going to talk more about this in our collaborate time. But do watch this trailer and think about this from a research point of view. I'm going to read you a little bit of the background to what actually happened to these three men. So, basically what happened was they were separated at birth, but they did not know, nor did their adoptive parents know that they were triplets. So they never knew that each other existed until this sort of freak meeting. So what happened was, I'm just going to read this to you. The scientific inquiry, masterminded by prominent psychologist Dr. Peter Neubauer and his Child Development Center in 1961, set out to answer the fundamental question of nature versus nurture. So if you have triplets and you put them in totally different environments or nurture, what happens to their life, their intellect, their relationships? Is it the same, or is it all about how they live in their environment or their sorry, I got it mixed up. Their nature is their innate. Do they all look the same? Do they all act the same? Do they have the same cognitive ability? Or is the environment or nurture the thing that actually has the biggest impact? So that's what this psychologist was doing. But ethically, it's bad. It's bad. You can't just separate children at birth and never tell them that they have brothers or sisters. Okay, so Dr. Peter Neubauer was like, okay, I'm going to finally figure this out, and did this. Through the now defunct Louise Wise Adoption Agency, an unknown number of twins and triplets were placed in different homes and secretly observed for years by researchers who diligently made home visits. And the parents were told these visits were standard to track the adoptive children's progress. So there's all sorts of deception going on here, and we're going to have a little bit of a chat about this in our collaborate. What do you think about this? In there. Okay, so it's when you research, you generally can't do this to your subjects. You cannot trick them, you cannot delude them, you cannot misinform them. You have to keep all these sort of confidentiality of the participants and the confidentiality of their information, and any kind of emotional or physical harm that might come to your participants, you must disclose. I'm actually on the ethics committee here at the college, and we are pretty serious about that. You cannot do all those things to the participants in your survey. But unfortunately, these young men were absolutely deluded, deceived, as well as their adoptive parents. So think about that from an ethical standpoint. Is it worth finding out these scientific results by manipulating people's lives? Whoa. Think about that. Be ready to discuss it in collaborate time. Okay, so educational psychology research, basically better teaching and learning occurs. So why do we care about you understanding research? Because basically, I'm just going to flip over here. Better teaching and learning occurs when educators contemplate how research findings are relevant to their classrooms. And you, as future teachers, need to be critical of research findings and evaluate whether methods were valid and reliable before implementing in the classroom. You're going to have a lot of research thrown at you, and you have to be discerning. You have to say, no, I don't think their research methods were credible, and this is why. And that's perfectly in your scope as academics and future teachers. Okay, I'm going to stop here and I'm going to start the next video. We're going to jump into motivating students because there's been a lot of really amazing research done around motivating students. So stop the video. We're going to just have a little contemplation about credible research and jump into the next video around motivating students.